Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We want to take a few minutes to let you know who we are and what's going on around here. We've actually designed everything with you in mind and to be for you. So everything we do points to our mission: create community, seek justice, and explore faith. If this is your first time checking out TLR, we have a gift just for you. Make sure to click that Welcome to TLR link so we can get in touch with you and get you that gift. We do so many things here at Sojourn, so as we get started, I quickly want to tell you about them and what to expect. Are you looking for something to do with your friends? Maybe you want to make new friends? 703 is the event for you. At 703, we find ways to have fun and create community. No matter what we do, it's always tons of fun. For more details, follow us on Instagram. If you or a friend wants to explore faith, ask questions, or think through your beliefs, then you're at the right place. The Living Room, or TLR for short, is designed just for that. No matter what you believe, we are so glad that you are here and that you're exploring faith with us. Lastly, if you want to have an awesome group of friends, really dive into talking about faith and life, or follow up on the things you've heard at TLR, then you should join a community group. Community groups are the best part of Sojourn. Here you get to hang out, have fun, and tackle the world together with some other amazing people. If you're interested, make sure to let us know on the Welcome to TLR link. Well, that's it for me. We are so glad you're here, and we hope you join us and have an awesome time at TLR. Stay awesome, friends.
What's up, everyone? My name is Nate. I'm so excited that we are here at the Living Room, TLR for short. Guys, I'm so excited that you are here, okay? If you have no idea what you just stumbled into, this is your first time watching, or you're watching this afterwards, okay? TLR is the conversation about life and faith. And I'm so excited that we get to have this conversation. And so, listen, this is important. That this is a conversation. And so whether you're watching this live or you're watching this afterwards, like, we want to hear from you, okay? And so comment away. You can comment in the chat box if you're watching live. You can comment, wherever you're watching this. Afterwards, we love to hear from you. It really is a conversation. Nobody Seriously, nobody, myself included, wants to hear just from me. So we'd love to hear from you, okay? Question to just practice this, okay? So you can see that, oh yeah, you know what, I can comment on this, and Nate will actually pay attention to it. The living room team will actually pay attention, okay? I'd love for you to comment, or at least think about, kind of get started for our conversation today. What is your perfect date? Okay, if you could describe your perfect date, what would it be? And for me, this is kind of a challenge. But I think my perfect date is April 25th, because it's not too hot, not too cold. You kind of just need a light jacket. I'm kidding. Okay, if you know what movie it's from, you know. Okay. Anyway, no, but what's a perfect date? Like, when you think romantically, okay, what's a perfect date? For me, if I'm answering honestly, it's kind of just like, I don't know if this is like, weird. I don't know. I really just like the whole dinner and a movie thing. Okay. You remember movies when you go watch movies? That was fun. But, I just like getting to know and talk to people. Well, it's not really people now. It's just my wife, Amanda. But I like to just go somewhere where we can eat and just talk. And then, I don't know, that's pretty much it. But that's my perfect date. What about for you? If you, watching this, would love to hear what your perfect date is. But I start here because I can tell you some not perfect dates that, I was the reason that they weren't perfect. And so I don't know if I was on them, but I'm the one that calls them not to be perfect. These are embarrassing stories, and I'm not proud of this, but this helps set us up where we're going, okay? But one perfect date that I wasn't on, I've shared the story recently, but me and my girlfriend at the time, we were in an argument in my truck, and we're arguing, and she just gets out of my truck and is mad at me, and I'm like, okay, get back in the truck and I'll drive you home, we don't have to talk or whatever. And she goes, no, and takes her iced coffee and just chucks it at my truck. Well, I'm mad and immature, and I just drive away and leave her there, okay? And then I make her walk home, okay? And it started to rain, and that was bad, okay? I'm not proud of that. We broke up. We should have broken up, okay? She deserved better. I'm sorry if you who that was ever sees this, I'm sorry I was wrong, okay? Another really bad date was that there was a time on my previous 3 dates or girlfriends were 2 sisters and their best friend. I just went in order, and that wasn't good. And that last girl that was their friend is the one that I talked about last week, where I broke up with her right before Valentine's Day and her birthday. So that was bad. Okay, that was immature and bad, and for those 3, I'm sorry. But we're talking about this, and I share that because it's kind of funny to laugh at what an idiot I was. But I started there because we all want to be in good, fun relationships, right? Okay, we all want to be in a relationship that's good and healthy, but how do we get there? Okay, and I start with those 2 stories where I was immature because I was very, very immature, right? And how do you make sure that you don't date me? Okay, how do you make sure you don't date somebody that acting like I was? How do you make sure that we have healthy relationships? Because again, I think it's something we all want to be in, right? And when I started thinking about this, and we've been talking about this for a couple weeks, but I just started thinking about how early we're introduced to the idea of being in a good relationship. It starts with Disney, all the Disney princesses and the movies, they're great. The fairy tales, they're great, but it just sets this expectation so high. One of my favorites, one of my daughter's favorites, and because it's her favorite, it's also my favorite, is Frozen. You know the story of Frozen. You have Anna and Elsa, and in that story, Anna, in the first Frozen movie, she's in love with Hans, and just, in love with Hans the whole time, and then turns out it's actually not real, and then Kristoff is there, but, he just swoops in, and, Kristoff's there, but then it actually isn't really even about that. It's about the love between 2 sisters. That's great. And then you have Frozen 2, where Kristoff is so, nervous and, how he's going to ask Anna to marry him, and, and it's adorable, right? And we see movies like that. My daughter watches them over and over again. We love them, and they're adorable. But we see movies like that, and here's what it does, is that's a fairy tale. That's a made-up story, okay? You're an adult. You're an adult living in the real world, and either through experience or other people's experience, that that's not real life. That's not what happens, okay? We wish it did. I mean, the idea of Kristoff just falling in your lap, and you just have the perfect relationship, and it just always works out, and it's always good. That sounds great, but it's not real life. That's a fairy tale. And so, if that's not real life, what do you do with that? where do you go from there? Well, and just like everything in life, you need a plan, okay? Like, if you want, and this is why we're having this conversation, that if you want a relationship to go well, you got to think about it ahead of time. Because too often, with relationships in particular, people don't think or plan ahead. They just expect, oh, I'm going to have a great relationship, it's going to be great. Well, are you sure? And here's the thing, you actually know this. You just know this in other areas. So think about this. Why are you in school right now? Okay, or why did you go to school? Okay, it's because you want to end up somewhere. Okay, you want to be a nurse. It doesn't just fall in your lap. Okay, I know some of you nursing students wish it did. Okay, you wish you didn't have to do all the clinicals, but you do. To be a nurse, there's a plan. Okay, you have to do that. To be a teacher, you don't get to just show up and go, oh, you know what, I want to teach today. There's a whole plan. Okay. You want to lose weight. You want to exercise. We know that there are plans that you have to do and work you have to do to end up places. But for some reason in our culture, and I don't know if it starts with Disney. I don't know where it starts. Okay, I'm not trying to throw shade on our culture, but this is just true. In our culture, we just think dating is just going to work out. It's just going to be good. Well, that's silly because that's not true anywhere else in life, and it's not true in dating. This reminds me of a quote that I love that I had hanging up in my house at one point. I just love this quote. But it's that we don't drift in good directions. We prioritize and discipline our way there. And that's by Andy Stanley. And I love that quote because it's true for all areas of life. That if you want to end up somewhere good, you have to discipline and prioritize and plan your way there. But how can you do that? And with dating, what does that look like? I want to share two kind of just foundational principles that I think that if we got these right and we applied them, I think it would make a huge difference in our, not just friendships, but in our dating relationships. And so we're going to look at those two, and then I'll actually apply these for you as well, kind of show you what it looks like to apply these. And the first is this. We've been talking about this actually in just different ways throughout this entire series, that life is better connected. Because we all know that life is better connected, but relationships and the connectedness is also the source of a lot of pain, messiness, right? Okay. And so with that, we know life is better connected, but that's what we're working through here. And this foundational principle I think applies to all relationships, definitely dating, is that we need to work to identify what is our identity in. What are we building our life on? What is the foundation of our life? And here's why that's important. Because for some people, the foundation of your life is that you're dating. Like that is the most important thing to you. Like, you do not feel complete unless you're dating. For other people, your identity or your foundation of your life has been being an athlete or making money or working, getting a good job, getting a good career, getting a degree, whatever. We can put our identity in so many things. But when you do that, the question you need to ask yourself is, the thing that you're putting your identity in, is it stable? Is it secure? And here's why that's important, is that if it's not, you know what happens if you build on an unstable foundation? You're not stable, okay? And I think many of us with COVID, we've started to experience this, right? I think for me, I know this, that there are areas in my life that I built on this foundation and having this stable thing. And then with COVID, it's not stable anymore and I feel unstable. Well, how does that apply to dating? Well, if you are building your life on something unstable and you start dating somebody that's also doing that, what happens? You have two unstable people in a relationship. And what do you think two stable people in a relationship equals? Not stable, I can tell you that, okay? And here's the thing. We don't like to evaluate this because we like to pretend things are stable, right? We like to justify I will always have a good job. I will always be smart. I will always be able to, whatever it is, right? But that's, and you're smart enough to know that's not necessarily true. So what can you build your life on? Here's where, as a Christian, I have an opinion on this. And if you disagree with this, that's totally fine. And that's part of why we have these conversations, is that you can wrestle with this. You can disagree with this. And I encourage you to. But I think the most stable thing you can build your life on is God. Is that God, through Jesus, shows that he loves you and cares for you, period. And that's where your value comes from. Your value comes because you are a loved child of God. I think that's the most stable thing you can build your life on, because that's an identity that is just given to you. You don't have to work for it. It's the only identity that you don't have to work for. And it's what we talk about here all the time at TLR. And I could talk about that forever, but I'm just going to move on with this, that I think it's worth paying attention to. What are you building your life on? Because whatever it is that you're building your life on, you will carry that into any relationship, friendships, family, but especially dating. And you want to pay attention to, is what you're building on really stable? And if it's not, it's worth evaluating. Here's the next thing. The second core principle here to at least look at. And it's the idea that mutual, and the key word there is mutual submission is the key or secret sauce for relationships. Now, I know when I say submission, that is not a word we like. Okay, nobody likes to submit, myself included. It's a word that gets twisted. There's so many things about submission we don't like. I understand. But just before you exit on, you're like, oh, Nate's lost it. Okay, I haven't yet. But just check this out, okay? Here's why I say that, is that if you've been around TLR, we talk about this all the time. How when Jesus, one of the very last things he said to his friends before he left was he said, listen, if you don't remember anything else, here's the number one thing that you need to know. In fact, I probably say this every week. He says the number one thing you need to know is that you need to love others, not just any way you want to, but you need to love others as I have loved you. Okay? Well, okay, that's nice and that's kind of helpful, but then what does that mean? How do you apply that? Well, later, a couple of years later, Paul comes along, who again we talk about all the time, but he starts to apply and give some application to that, because just love other people as Jesus has loved us. Okay, well, how do I do that? Well, Paul gives us examples, and in some of his letters, in fact, in all of his letters, he works on applying that in specific situations. So, what does it mean to love somebody if you're a parent? How do you love like Jesus if you're a parent? How do you love like Jesus if you're a friend? How do you love like Jesus if somebody's angry with you? And Paul is giving examples of that. And one of those that he gives an example for is marriage. Now, I know most people watching this, you're not married and you're not even really thinking about marriage. You're just I just like a date, okay? And I understand that. But, okay, dating, I don't know if you know this, at some point, dating typically leads to dating for a long time, which then leads to engaged, which then leads to marriage, okay? And I know you're not there yet, and I understand, but we're starting at the end, and we're going to work our way back, okay? But Paul gives us advice for how to apply Jesus' standard of love others as I have loved you to marriage. And he says this, okay? He says, submit, okay, and hang on, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Okay, notice what he said, one another, as in both people, okay? Not one over the other, but both of you submit to each other. He then continues, and I know that this one gets a lot of pushback, but just bear with me. He says, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as you do to the Lord. And again, people, in fact, some of you watching this, maybe you were at a church that twisted this and was like, this is why women are second, this is why husbands are more important, why men rule, and blah, 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 all that just stupid stuff, honestly, that pastors can say. That is not what Paul is trying to communicate here at all. Remember, this started off with submit to each other, and he's following up on that. And he starts with the wives, and he says, wives, submit to your husbands as you do to the Lord. Okay? All right? As Jesus submitted to you, you submit to your husbands. But he doesn't just leave it there. Okay? Next, he says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Okay? And how did Jesus do that? Jesus submitted. Okay? Paul, again, I can't say this clearly enough before we move on from this. Paul is not saying just one of you submit to the other. He's saying both of you submit to each other. It's a submission competition. Now, I got to go on this rabbit trail real quick, because I know if you're like, okay, Nate, this sounds foreign. Why would anybody do that? You need to understand how radical this was for the time period. Okay? Because at this time, wives didn't have a choice but to submit. Women, remember the time period. Women were property. Oftentimes just a transaction and like a bartering deal. I'll marry you for 200 horses. Okay? That's what women were. They couldn't testify in court. They had no rights. So they had no choice to submit. What's radical about what Paul says here is that Paul says, yeah, listen, I know you guys all think that, but here's the thing. Husbands, you need to do the same thing. You need to actually love your wife. You actually need to submit to her. And his audience would be responding kind of like we do. Well, hold up. I have to submit to my wife. I have to love her. She's property. I have to submit to her? Why would I do that? And he reminds us, you do that because you are loving your wife the same way that God, through Jesus, chose to love you. That's what you're to do with everyone. You're just to submit. And again, if this sounds foreign to you and you're like, I don't get it stuff, how would that even look? Like whatever stuff. Just think about this. This is how this would play out. Is that you, in your relationship, okay, whenever you get there, your number one priority no longer is you. You decide that your number one priority is your partner. Okay? But the tension with that is, well, if I'm not looking out for myself, who's going to look out for me? That's the beauty of this. Your partner, their number one priority becomes you. And you guys both submitting to each other. And you're like, no, you go first. No, you go first. No, you first. Like, how can I help you? No, how can I help you? Okay? And when you have a relationship built on that is the secret sauce of a long, loving, and enduring relationship. And it was radical for time. I could talk about how radical that was for it and continue on that. But what I want you to hear is that is the secret sauce. But I know we don't like the word submit. But I think that the weight of that word is actually the thing. Is that you are choosing to humble yourself and submit to the other person. Now, this sounds crazy. And you're like, there's no way I would ever do that. Like, Nate, nobody does this. Okay? All right. You're right. You're probably right. But just play this out for a second. What type of dating relationship or marriage do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the relationship where the other person is always like, me first, me first. No, screw you, me first, me first. Is that really the relationship you want to be in? Or would you rather be in the relationship where you're like, no, you first, and they're like, no, you first? Doesn't one of those sound better than the other? And in fact, many of you have experienced that first type of relationship, that relationship where somebody is like, me first, me first. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're the selfish one. Maybe you're both selfish. What happens when you have two people like that? You clash a lot more. But when you choose to submit, okay, that is the secret sauce of relationships. Now, when you apply this to dating, okay, because I know that's marriage, and you're like, Nate, I'm not even there. Nate, I would take a wife to submit to. I don't even have a date, okay? Like, I would love to have a date, but I'm not even there. Yeah, whatever. I can't even get somebody to go out with me. How does this apply to dating? And this is what I want you to see, is that in dating, this is when you're testing and seeing what somebody is like, okay? Because guess what? A little newsflash, and you know this, but early on in dating, okay, that's when people are on their best behavior. It usually doesn't go up from there, okay? It usually goes the other direction, okay? Or at least stays the same. But think about this. If you're dating somebody and they're constantly putting themselves first, you see them putting other people down. You see them, humiliating other people, being mean to waiters and waitresses, being mean to their parents, being mean to their friends. What do you think is eventually going to happen to you? I think you know the answer. But you reverse this, okay? What happens if you start dating somebody and you see they're serving other people? They're serving you, okay? They're putting other people first constantly around them. Well, what do you think your relationship's going to be like? And again, you know the answer. Remember, things don't magically change. They do in Disney, but not in real life, okay? You don't live in a fairy tale. You live in the real world. I wish that the fairy tales were true. I really do. But this is real life, and you need a plan. So what do you do with all this? So I get here, and what do you do with all this? And here's where, honestly, between us, and if you keep this in the room, okay, I just want to be really honest and just frank with you over stuff that I've seen over the past 7-8 years. 7 years of being married, years of working with college students, seeing a bunch of good relationships and a lot more bad ones. Okay, I want to just share how I would apply this and honestly just some rules that I would set that I can't force you to follow. I can't force you to do anything. But if I had to create some dating rules, this is what it'd be it. And I'll be honest, I'm making these up. So if you disagree with them, that's totally fine. In fact, if you disagree with you, I encourage that, okay? Because disagreeing means that you're wrestling with it and thinking about it. But you need to know, I'm just making this up. This is not magically written out there somewhere. I'm like, and you have to do this. But I would encourage you to do it because this is me applying those two principles. And again, that somebody's value, your value, comes from that God loves you. And then value number 2, that mutual, again, keyword mutual, submission is the secret sauce of relationships. So how would I apply that? I have 7 rules that I would apply to dating, and I hope these are practical and help and give you a plan to at least start with. First one is this, and again, you can disagree, okay? If you disagree, put it in the chat. We'll have a Q&A after. You can call me anytime, whatever. We can talk about this. But number 1, this might be one of my biggest ones. If I could snap my fingers, this is the one I would do. But stop believing in the right person myth. I already started talking about this a little bit, but the myth goes that when you meet the right person, everything's just going to be great. When you meet the right person, you're going to have a happily ever after. But again, that's not real life. It's silly. A story that I always think about involves, I read this story, and this girl told it from her point of view, that she just dated, she was on all the apps, she just dated the way that everybody around her was dating, and she's just hooking up with people and whatever. But one day, she meets this amazing guy, and this guy that she met, he had a great job, he was good looking, had a great car, he volunteered with kids, he tutored kids, he was a Christian, he was just like the perfect guy. And when after this girl met him, she goes home and is telling her mom about it. And it's like, Mom, this guy just going on. And the mom has some real guts. Because the mom looked at her daughter and said, you know the problem with a guy like that? Is that he's not interested in dating a girl like you. And that stings, okay? That stings me. And she's not even saying it to me. And it stung the daughter. And she was not happy, as you can imagine. But as she reflected on it, she's like, it's true. That I have the standard for somebody I want to date, but I'm not even the right person. I have growth that I need to do. Why? Like, I have so many things I need to grow in. Why would somebody like that date me? And it's not that she's not valuable, it's that she had work to do. And so this myth that you're just going to meet the right person, okay, and then everything's going to be great. Not only does that take away from the fact that maybe you have work to do, but it also takes away from the fact that, like, relationships are a lot of work, okay? They don't, again, just fall in your lap. Like, it takes effort. You actually have to care and invest in the other person. It takes work. And so it doesn't just fall in your lap. I literally talk about that forever, but we move on. Number 2. 2 and 3 are kind of related here. But guys, and I say guys because typically it's the guy usually asking, doing a lot of the asking out, but this applies to anybody that asks somebody out on a date. But when you ask somebody out on a date, you need to honor and respect them by, like, being specific and, like, seriously ask, like asking for a specific date, like an actual plan, like an actual, hey, would you go to dinner with me at this restaurant at this time on this day? And here's why I say that, is that typically what happens in our culture, and I know this because I used to do this, okay, but typically, a guy will go, hey, you want to hang out sometime? And here's the problem with that, is that it's not very honoring, and it's not very respectful, because it's just a bunch of gray area. Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Like, what are your expectations? What are my expectations? It's not honoring to the person, okay? And again, you can be like, Nate, that's kind of old school, and like whatever stuff, and maybe it is, but the person that you're asking to hang out with, they're a child of God. They deserve the respect and the honor to, like, have something clearly communicated to them. So do that. On the flip side of this, if you're being, like, only say yes to dates. Make the person be specific with you and to actually ask you out on a real date, not just to hang out sometime. Okay? And here's how this looks. Somebody says, hey, you want to hang out sometime? What are we doing? When are you planning? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, let me know when you have a plan. And again, I know you're like, Nate, if I did that, no guy's going to ever talk to me again. Like, Nate, if I did that, nobody does that. Like, oh, it's so much harder to actually plan and to think ahead of time. And, like, it's just easier to be like, you want to hang out sometime? And I know, it is. But here's why I want to push on you. I'm encouraging you to date different, to have a better plan than what other people do. Because look around you, okay? There's a lot of pain and heartbreak in the way that most people choose to date. And so have a plan. Back to, like, why you should say yes to this. If you establish from day one that you are worthy of honor and respect, so much so that somebody needs to actually have a plan to actually ask you out on a date, you set your boundaries and your guidelines from day one that you are worthy of respect because you are. You are worthy of somebody having a plan and others, hey, I want to hang out sometime. And so you set that for yourself from day one because you are valuable. And again, I know, you're like, but Nate, if I did that, he's so hot and he might never talk to me. You're right, he might not. Okay? All right? But there's worse things than that, which we'll get to. But ask people out on dates. Say yes only to dates. Seriously. You are worthy of it, and the person you're asking is worthy of it. Number 4, we've talked about this with friends, but this applies especially to boyfriends and girlfriends, is that the person you're dating really has probably the most impact on the direction and quality of your life. We talked about that with friends, but especially with dating. Okay? And so for some of you, you need to evaluate, is the person you're dating or the person you're considering dating, are they going in the direction you want to go? Are they, because you can think ahead. Are they going where you want to go? Do you want to be with them when they get there? And some of you, that might mean you start looking and you're like, oh, snap. Maybe I need to break up with that person. And that's uncomfortable, I know. But that's better than ending up somewhere you don't want to be. If you're a Christian, especially if you're not a Christian, you just take that for what it is. But if you're a Christian, so many times I see people who are like, I love Jesus, I love God. It's a priority in my life. And then they start dating somebody that's not a priority for them. And is that wrong? I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong. But what I am going to tell you is that, again, the person you're dating has a huge, probably the biggest impact on the direction and quality of your life. And so you really have to ask yourself, are you going in a direction you want to go? Is the person you're dating going in a direction you want to go? And just be honest with yourself and evaluate that and take action accordingly. Next one. This is one that probably get the most pushback on, honestly, and that's okay. But as we start to wrap up, I just thought right here in the middle be the hardest one. But number 5 here, don't do something that will make you a liar for life. AKA, don't just hook up with people. And here's why I say that, is I could get all theological and biblical and God, I'm not going to go there. I'm just on a very practical level. Is that one of the worst things I think about our society is this hookup culture. Okay? All the apps, Tinder, they perpetuate this, and I get it. You need to be on it. I'm not against dating apps. I get it. Okay? I have tons of friends that have been on dating. I know a ton of healthy relationships starting online and dating apps. Okay? That's not what I'm against. What I'm against, and what I'm encouraging you to really evaluate, is this hookup culture. And here's why. Is that when you choose to just hook up with somebody or to start your relationship on hooking up, you have set the foundation and you have set the priority to one aspect of that person. Okay? And you've set that as the key and foundational thing. And typically when I push people on this, they're like, but Nate, it's consensual. Okay? First off, that's a terrible argument. Something can be consensual and still be bad. I know somebody that consented to getting into a car with a drunk driver, and now she can't walk because that drunk driver got in a wreck. Okay, does that mean that it's good? No. Okay, all right. Consensual doesn't mean it's something's good or bad. Okay, but the other thing is that for some of you, maybe you've done this, and others you can imagine this. But why is it? And I know this is true because I used to do this, okay? But why is it when you start dating somebody new and you have that talk where you start talking about your past relationships and you start like downplaying and kind of lying and fudging the numbers of like previous relationships? You say to somebody like, oh yeah, we hooked up a couple of times, but that couple was really like 30, okay? But you're just like, like we hung out some. No, you hooked up, okay? Why is it we do that? It's because part of us, we feel guilt or shame or we don't want that other person to know. But why is that? And all I would encourage you to do is to don't do anything that in the future relationships you're going to want to lie about. Even future friendships that you're going to want to lie about what you're doing. Don't do something that makes you a liar for life. Last couple here as we wrap this up is I would encourage you, number 6 here, I would encourage you, stop thinking that being single is the worst thing ever. It's not. And I know, if you're single and you've been single a while, you don't want to hear a married guy say that. I get that, okay? But just to wrestle with this, and feel free to disagree, but you know what I think is worse than being single? It's being stuck in an unhappy relationship. Because you're so desperate for either attention or affection or to be in a relationship. Seriously, how many stories do you know of adults who they're stuck in these unhappy marriages because they saw red flags and they just ignored them. And now there's kids and a mortgage and you just have all this emotional weight. Okay? When if they had applied some of this stuff ahead of time, they wouldn't have found themselves there. Or what about being hurt because you chose to avoid warning signs? Like physically, emotionally abused because you chose to avoid warning signs. That happens. Or how about realizing that you wasted time, money, emotions in a relationship when you could have just been single, when you could have been developing other areas of your life, and when you could have realized that your identity is in something greater than being in a relationship. There's a lot of things that are worse than just being single. I promise. Lastly, some of you need to be single for a while, okay? Some of you need to take some time because you date a bunch of people over and over again and it's constantly not working out well and you're like, why is that happening this way? Well, it's because you're not in a healthy place. You need to grow. And you can't grow while you're constantly dating people and you're so focused on, I gotta date. No, you can only grow and heal when you take the time to focus on that and make that a priority instead. So some of you need to I encourage people to take a year off from dating. Okay, and I know that sounds crazy. Okay, but you need time to heal. Okay, and if you've been dating a bunch of people, you need to. For some of you, you haven't dated anybody, but you're so focused on finding a date that you need to stop doing that and still take time to heal. Take time to grow. Take time to become a better person because your future relationships will appreciate it. Now, here's where I want to close. Is that when I say all this, I can imagine some of you, if not all of you, being like, all right, well, it's confirmed. Nate's crazy. Nate, nobody dates like this. If I were to date like this, I would never have a boyfriend. I'd never have a girlfriend. You want me to say to somebody when they say, hey, you want to hang out? And they're super cute. They're super hot. You're going to be like, well, what are we doing? You have a plan for me? I'm worried. You really want me to do that? And what I'd say is, again, remember, I'm not your parent. I'm not in control of you at all. You can do whatever you want. I really want you to hear that, okay? You can do whatever you want. But what I would encourage you to do, my big point in all of this, is for you to evaluate. What is your plan for having a good dating relationship? Do you have one? Most people don't. As I said, most people just drift along, and the first person that gives them attention and is cute enough, they're like, I'm going with that one and hope it's good, okay? But my friend, you are so much more valuable than that. You are so much more worthy of a good relationship than just the first person to give you attention. That doesn't mean that person is not a good person. I don't know. But don't let that be your plan. Or the plan that other people where you just drift along and hope and figure it out as you go and stuff. Okay, I mean, that works sometimes. Okay, I'm not saying it's impossible. Okay, it definitely can work. But is that what you want to trust and put your faith in? They're like, oh, I just hope it works out. Don't you want to plan ahead of time? And here's where I would challenge you to evaluate this. Because I know, you can think, Nate, your plan is so archaic and old school. And I understand feeling that way. But pay attention to how our society dates. Pay attention to how other people date. Pay attention to their heartbreak and stories. If you have those stories, okay, what was your plan then? And then compare it to some of the stuff I laid out. And decide for yourself which would be better. Would it be better to think ahead of time what your standards are, what your plan is? Or is it better to just drift along? Because I would, this is my final plea for doing that, is that imagine if we all did this. I know I can't force the whole world to do it, but imagine if I could. We all dated this way. We all dated with the premise that everybody is valuable, period. Why are they valuable? Because God loves them. Done. And number two, we are going to mutually submit to the person. That means we're going to put the other person first, and they're going to work to put us first. Imagine if the whole world did that. There'd be a lot less heartbreak, and even if you're in a relationship that ended, there would be a lot less pain and emotional shrapnel. And I know, while we can't force the whole world to do that, you can force yourself to do that. And I would encourage you to do that. So there's a lot here. I covered a lot of ground. There may be things that you're processing that you're like, Nate, I don't know if I agree with. Like, I don't know what I think about all this. And that's why I would encourage you to join a community group. Community group is where you can discuss this, where you can be like, Nate's an idiot. Like, he has lost touch with reality. Like, he has no idea what's going on. And that's where a community group is awesome. Because seriously, you can talk about it, you can process this, and would highly encourage you to do that. The other thing that I would encourage you, we've been talking a lot about relationships, and the best thing to do in relationships is to go be for each other. And so I would encourage you guys this week, if you're dating, definitely have this conversation with whoever you're dating, and, talk about this and talk about, expectations and stuff. If you're not, you can talk to friends about it, you can whatever and stuff. But beyond that, just go and do something for other people. Go love and care. We need that more now than ever, to go and be for Rick. Go do something for other people. So that's it for me. After our closer, we'll have a Q&A if you have any questions. If you're watching this afterwards, you can always DM us, and we'd love to hear from you. But I tell you guys this every week, that we love you. We think you guys are great. We think you're awesome. And so you guys just get out there and you guys freaking stay awesome. Every single one of you, just stay awesome out there. See you guys.
I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
What's up, people? So, yeah, any question, you can comment that in the chat, and just hang out awkwardly here for a minute. And yeah, we'll go from there. So, I'm gonna look at my computer, or you can just log off. But that's what we're doing. It's always nice and fun to just sit here and fill some airtime. Like, I feel like I should tell a joke, maybe have like a knock joke, like, oh, no, knock, who's there? Date who? I don't have one. Alright, well, you can DM.